The second episode in the working with energization exercises and final one before we move to a different topic. And for all of you who might already know, Keshwa was born in Ananda village, was born with Ananda, and he's serving full time. And Vayu is also our friend, brother of Barakwel, many of you might know, and both very good friends of Ananda here in India and there. And we are just very nice opportunity for us to be having them who have explored the potential of energization exercises to a bit extent more than many of us. So welcome again, both of you. And so this session, we are going to make it a little fun. I have few questions here. I'll just start with Vayu, then Keshwa, then it'll keep going back. So the first question, I'll request Vayu to take it up. So Vayu, and in this blog, The Wishing Tree, I read in the first sentence, it says, you remember, this is your words, in which you say very brief introduction from part of teachers was finalized with the statement, remember, energization exercises are spiritual, not physical exercises. We do them in order to meditate better, but they can't in any way take the place of a physical workout. And then Vayu, you say, silently, I disagreed. I'm just going to leave it there, and you can tell us why you disagree. And then I'll request Keshwa to join.
Oh, I can tell you why I disagreed. Well, first of all, I have thought many times about that blog and going back and thinking I should like to rewrite it because I don't like the fact that I was disagreeing in public with one of the teachers. So, I was young and arrogant, whatever. But yes, because my experience with the energization exercises over 19 years now has always been that there's always a little more than you think. There's always a little more to discover. There's always a little more to kind of realize about them. And in this particular case, it was a very simple thing because he said I felt that this teacher was limiting the scope of the energization exercises, whereas it had been my experience that there's really no limit to what the energization exercises can be for you, whether it be physically, mentally. Sorry, how much time am I supposed to answer, because I can go on forever and there's Keshav over there. I don't know how many questions you have.
I have like 4 questions, means even okay. 4 minutes or something.
Yeah, so I didn't feel right just on the concept of limiting what the energization exercises can do for you. Physically speaking, just in particular for that question, I know that ever since I was 15, I have never done, until I was 32 or something, I never did any sort of exercise other than energization. And the fact is, this was a little before you came to Pune, Premdas, but when I was in the monastery in Pune, there's a bunch of, big men there, especially Aditya and others. And, people knew me to be very, very strong. They were competing between Aditya and I. There were 2 sides in the monastery. But they knew that to be a fact, and that was because of energization. It's not only that it helps you physically, which it does. If you're doing it like with some good polenta, as they say, then let's say if I normally energize once or twice a day, if I start doing it 3 times a day, my muscles hurt. It's like a workout. You have to get used to that. And the other thing that they do for you in that regard is that they increase your willpower by a great amount, and that's always going to help you physically also, right? So that was the basis of why I was saying, well, I disagree.
Thank you so much, and Keshwa. I know you also have been also have done it many times, and maybe your experience on why it's not just, why it has much more potential. Yeah.
I totally agree with everything Vayu is saying. I'll just toss in, because I briefly was a personal trainer and worked in the fitness industry, and I was a power lifter. And the simple fact of the matter is, as Master points out, when you use a weight, the weight defines the energy that is required to perform the exercise. And so, that there is a measurable amount of force that's required to lift, say, 300 pounds. And so that's as much willpower as you have to put out. And so what makes energization so unique is when you're doing, say, the 4-part army charge, guess what? As a power lifter, that looks a lot like three of the big movements that we do all the time. But the question is, how much willpower are you going to put into it? Because your muscles are still capable of an equal and equivalent contraction. But really, the question becomes, how much does your willpower want it? And so even from sort of a physiological perspective, it should be possible to elicit exactly the same, if not better, results from energization, provided that you have an adequate will. And so then the question becomes, what is lacking, my willpower or my implement? And in the case of energization, they're both the same. And so, like Vayu's saying, the more your will increases, the more your physical power increases, and those go hand in hand. So it is a thrilling thing to explore energization as a doorway, even to physical power and strength. And I really would just like to underscore one thing which he said, which was that to approach the energization exercises thinking that you already know everything they have to give you is a mistake, because it limits your ability to continue to receive from them. But if you approach them with keen interest and curiosity, that you're hoping to discover what these exercises can give to you, that my experience has been that they will continually rejuvenate you, continually re-inspire you, continually surprise you. That I thought I knew everything there was to know about energization, or, in quotes, not really, but, we could say I thought I knew a lot. And then when I embarked on really trying to deepen my practice, about every couple of weeks, I would have spontaneous realizations of how to go deeper and what the exercises were really for, and deeper revelations of how they were changing me. So, like he said, I think be curious and jump into it. And yes, they can help your body. They can help. Master said they help your mind, that they help your will. And let's see what they're capable of.
Thank you so much. And so, on the same point of how much will and tension you put out, also, I think when I was speaking with you, we were covering on this point of relaxation. Maybe you showed me about a rubber band or some example. Why don't you tell what is the importance of which we sometimes, yeah.
Absolutely. So, like I mentioned, I was a power lifter for a while, which is all about exercising the maximum amount of physical willpower in a very, very limited amount of time. And so I got very good at tensing with will. And what I noticed when I began practicing more intensely and trying to take the practice deeper myself was I was very good at graduating or gradiating would be the right word, the tension aspect, the low, medium, high, until you're vibrating. And then even, I was in a class once in Gyandev to illustrate the point that you can always tense harder. He told us to tense as hard as you can. And there I was, like tensing my whole body as hard as I could, turning red in the face. And then he said, and now tense a little harder. And I started tensing harder. And he said, now tense harder. And I was like, oh my God, I thought I was, but I can. And I found I could tense a little bit harder. But then when he would say, okay, now let's relax, it was like I had been drawing a rubber band out with tension. And then I just suddenly let go of both ends and it went snap and it fell. And what I discovered is most of the time, even if I thought I was consciously relaxing, I would spend 80% of my time and effort building the tension and very little time actually relaxing it in a similar way. And when I actually read the poem that Master wrote to be said after energization, which is in the book, How to Achieve Glowing Health and Vitality. And in that, he says this incredibly intriguing line. And he says, I know that in tension, I put forth energy into the body, and in relaxation, I withdraw it. And I thought, well, that's very interesting, because I have experienced that intention. I've put forth energy into the body. But when I relax, am I withdrawing it? And where am I withdrawing it to? How can I become aware of that? And Master also writes elsewhere that it's in the relaxation portion that we're really beginning to become aware of prana. And so I started really trying to focus on spending an equal duration of time, energy, effort, and awareness on how much I relax and how consciously I relax. And that when just as you tense with great will, building that tension, I relax with great awareness. That I relax high, medium, low, and then deeply feel at the center of the muscle. And I discovered from my own practice when I started doing that is really when I began to receive from the technique. And it began to give me more of the spiritual, energetic, and psychological benefits of the practice. And then, I mean, I could talk about this for, like Vayu said, we could do this all night, but the spiritual ramifications of learning to relax, of learning to receive are enormous and cannot be overstressed. And I say that pun intended. But learning to relax and receive is such an elegant, graceful part of what our path is about. And I've discovered I get so much more when I equalize both of those portions. And so my simple invitation to you all would be this: see if you can spend as much time relaxing as you do tensing. And you can even do this very physically, that if you're doing the left arm recharge, try and imagine at what point of that movement are you at a certain percentage of tension. So are you at 30% tension here, 60% here, and 100% here? And then on your way down, mirror that and do 60% here, 30% here, and 0. It should be exactly the same process, just simply in reverse. So I'll pass it over to Vayu now. I'd love to hear what he has to say.
Well, actually, you've taken it in exactly the same direction that I was going to take it. So I'm going to focus more on the later part in that case. Let me start with, there was one time back when we first and last met, Keshava, when I went to America in 2012. And I remember I was in the office, I was working late that day, as I was most days. And I remember I had not energized yet for the day. It was 10:30 or so at night. So to make up for it, I energized twice in a row at that moment. And then the problem was I could not sleep. I was, you could say I was tired. I could feel the tiredness somewhere on the back of my awareness or something, but I was like hyped, like if I had drunk coffee or something. So until 4 in the morning, I wasn't able to sleep. And then, I had to get up at 7. It was a mess. But that day got me thinking, it is great. I know that energization is supposed to give me energy, but it's not supposed to make me like an invalid because in that sense, that didn't work out, right? It wasn't the right kind of being awake. It was like drinking coffee, which is like there's an extra kind of stress put in there, and you're hyped. You're what's the word? Wired, perhaps? I don't remember. Huh? I saw Shish's mouth move. But in any case, so I started to think at that point, I'm missing something here. What is wrong here? And I realized I needed to learn to do the relaxation part properly, because even then I knew that energization can give you anything you need at the moment you need it. And if I was right now doing it at night, right before sleep, it should at some level be able to fulfill my need at that point, which was having a nice night of rest, a better rest, you could say, not a worse one, because I'm too wired to to be able to rest. So anyway, so that's when I started to become aware of the relaxation aspect, and I went through the process as Keshava very nicely put. Thank you, Keshava. And as I went more and more into it, I started to see that energization and why we do it every day and why it is great to do it every day and to take everything. I realized that all of the principles we learn for energization, they apply basically for life, for the spiritual path and for life in general. And in this case, I want to underscore especially the aspect of tensing and relaxing, because that is something that in Western society we're usually very good at tensing, in terms of if if we do energization, we focus mostly on the tension, and then we kind of collapse with the relaxation, as Keshava said. But if you look at it, it also applies to our work life, to our relationship, to everything we do. We have a tendency to go, 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 put our willpower, but then we don't know where to stop. We don't know where to relax. And relaxing in this sense means to let go, basically. I was talking with a friend the other day. She was having a lot of trouble with her job and other things, and was having a lot of stress thinking about what must she do in life, what master wants of me, this and that, all very sincere, very deep, and very honest questions. But the first thought I had was like, there's a lot of tension going on in here, and you need to learn to relax. And that's exactly what energization teaches us by doing it every day, 2-3 times a day. Because relax in this case does not mean to go sit with a book or watch a movie or something. In a sense, that is a form of tension too, which is mentally you're involved. Relaxing in this case can mean to let go. And that's our spiritual principle, right? We do our best, the best we can. We put all our energy into something, that is tension, and then we let go of the results. We get them to master. That's relaxation. We don't stress about it anymore. So I think that's the main thing I want to share right now, that it is important to apply well the principles of tension and relaxation in energization, because that will give you a base to keep doing it in every aspect of your life. It starts with the physical, goes with the mental, goes through the spiritual. Everything can be balanced through that training, you could say, that you get with energization.
Thank you so much. And dear friends, as you all know, we always have some exercise homework. I think we should take over this week, maybe to practice energization exercises like Kesh Baba, you said, maybe focusing also on the relaxation aspect so that we can take the same time for both tension and relaxation. And please try it out over this next week and let us know how it is. And so the next question, Vayu, for you. And how can energization exercises you have been telling about how it can impact the whole life? So more in depth, how can it be a great influence maybe in hongs or practices spiritual or your work life? How energization exercises as a whole can be a great influence and help you in all other aspects of life?
I guess you can start counting, but but let's see, just picking up on that thread which we just were into. Um, Hong So, to some degree, it is an exercise in letting go. Why do I say this? Is because you have to be able to relax from your thoughts, from anything that is in you, to just focus relaxedly on the breath. So it goes back to the same thing I was saying before, in this sense that the more we have, energization is a amazing thing. Sorry, I'm going to diverge a little bit here because I wanted to mention this, which is, it's an amazing thing. It takes 12 to 15 minutes, Keshava said. By the way, I agree. Swamiji tell me the same thing personally. Even when you are, it says that if you are very focused, it will take that much. If you're not focused, it will take longer. So it takes 12 to 15 minutes. And yet people find it more difficult to get to than, they can go for an hour and a half to do a workout in the gym, which, you're like, but somehow there's a unwillingness so often to do energization. Somehow it takes more effort. I don't know what it is, mental effort. Well, I know what it is to some degree. It really takes, you really have to have energy to start with that process, because it really raises your energy in a way that is not only physical, but now coming back from that to Hong So. Oh, where was I going with this? No, I guess I went into too many tangents here. I had a point, and it just left me. I was saying that Hong So is an exercise of relaxing. You let go of things and you focus with relaxation on the breath. Oh yeah, that energization is a training base. It can be used as a base, as a training for everything else. And so it comes down to the same with Hong So. You have that training, and because it takes so much energy to get it started, it kind of sticks there to some degree. It really affects everything else you do afterwards, and this is a way in which it can. It trains you to tense, it tends you to relax also, and therefore it can increase in this indirect way your practice of Hong So. The other obvious thing that comes to mind is that let's face it, when your energy is low, your thoughts go everywhere. They really do. It's so much harder to do Hong So or any other meditation practice, any other thing that requires focus. So when you energize, obviously, it's not only that you become less tired, your mind becomes clear. You can see the difference often between before energizing and after energizing, that all of that clutter that you had up here because you brought so much energy into your everywhere, it kind of clears out to whichever degree you did your energization well. So in that sense, you can sit down to meditate, any sort of meditation, much better that way. And I'm gonna stop there and leave it to Keshava.
Thank you, Vayu. This is really fun, by the way. I hope we get to do this again. This is like playing ping pong with like my long lost best ping pong friend. Um, um, yeah, the energization exercises truly can benefit and increase anything and everything that you're doing, because Swamiji said so wonderfully that the secret of success in any endeavor is concentration and energy. And energization delivers into your hands half of that equation. Just if you have more energy, you're going to be better at anything that you undertake. Um, and then that you brought up Hong Sa will teach you to focus that. And if you can get those two things coming together, you're going to crack the mystic code of success in anything that you decide you want to take up. But actually, I'm going to also, like Vayu, take a little side tangent spin here and say, I loved what Vayu said, that when you have more energy, your mind is clearer, your mind focuses more. That was definitely my experience, but this actually brought up to me what was my favorite part of energization, which is energization clarifies the heart, and energization energizes the heart, because if you have more energy, it will more easily, as Sri Yukteswar said, awaken the natural love of the heart. I guess what I would like to most express to all of you is you have no idea yet how much you already love God, because there's so many little thwarting cross currents hiding your own natural devotion from you. But I was amazed when I energized more regularly, more with deeper concentration and energy, that it was like a sun was rising in my heart that was already present, but just had been just below the horizon of my awareness. It reveals the natural devotion, because with that greater energy, it allows the heart to just express itself in its natural way. And you'll find your practices are so increased, not just because of the presence of more energy, but because the heart has more energy. And therefore, you have more energy to love, more energy to devote to your practices. You'll find suddenly that when you chant, you actually mean the words, I want only thee, Lord, thee, only thee. And, we often joke and laugh about how sometimes we don't feel that way. But when you get enough energy flowing in the spine, you will mean those words. Or the chant springs to mind, my heart's aflame, my soul's afire, just for you, just you. And I found energization helped deliver that to me, that real experience that I loved God. And then once you taste into that, even if it's simply once, you'll remember that the sweetness of that experience forever. And I don't know what Vayu's experience has been, but for me, even with energization, mine is a story of peaks and valleys, that I may have these really deep experiences of revelation or of like blessing from God. And then there's sort of like daily life. where like, 8 times out of 10, this is where I am. And then occasionally there'll be a pattern through my own, self-effort and through predominantly, of course, God's grace. I'll have a deeper experience. But it's in those deeper experiences that you really discover who and what you really are. And then you can cradle that in the memory of your heart and in the memory of your meditation. And it will coax you and help you go deeper in everything else that you do. Now, I would just like to quickly answer one of the questions in the chat, because this is actually a really good question and one that I made a mistake with for a long time. And the question is, what is the right sequence? Energization, yoga asanas, and then meditation, or can you do meditation directly? Interestingly enough, I'm sort of rectifying some of my own bad karma here, because I was taught that one should always energize, do whatever physical asana practice, and then meditate. And so I was like really regimented about, I would wake up and the first thing I would do would be I would energize. And that's how I would teach people. But then recently I've had the great good karma of spending more time with Asha Nayaswami. And she corrected me on that. She said, that's not how Swamiji practiced. And that's not how he taught. And I was flabbergasted. I said, really? That's always how it was taught to me. And then Jyotish and Devi came to visit, and it came up at dinner conversation. And they said, no, that's not how Swamiji taught us. That Swamiji would wake up, he would meditate, he would answer letters, he would start a creative writing project. And then they said very often, sometimes at 10 o'clock in the morning, he would call them and would say, I'm about to energize. Would you like to come join me? And so all that to say, after that conversation, I realized energization is just best put where it best serves you. And that there are times, for example, when I'll spring out of bed and I will feel very calm and in a deep state of peace. And I will immediately move right into my meditation. I'll do my Mahamudra, I'll sit, I'll meditate. And there are days when I really do need to energize first. And so I would encourage you to get creative about where you're applying it and listen to the needs of the moment, as long as you're still doing it every day. That's the secret. Of course, ritual and habit can be very helpful, especially at the beginning. But I found this to be very helpful actually in my practice just in the last few months of really listening to see, do I want to meditate now? Do I want to chant now? Do I want to energize now? And flowing with that experience.
Thank you so much. And Vayu, did you have any more words to that? Maybe this, how energization, the flow, or any of the peaks or anything more for next 1 or 2 minutes?
Sure. Well, anyway, first I want to tell Keshava, I'm sorry. My experience with energization has been high after high, so I don't know what you're talking about. Just kidding. Just kidding. It is like that, so everybody never get discouraged, because that is just how the spiritual path, everything is, you do your best. And if you have extremely good karma, you'll have experience after experience, but that is not most people's experience. That is not what most people go through, and that is exactly what we need to grow. So anyway, about the right sequence, no, Keshava said it. Actually, I saw the question on chat. I was going to answer pretty much what he said, but I didn't have the context of what Asha or Jyotish and Devi says, so I was hesitant. I was thinking, oh my, I'm going to sound like a rebel. Keshava is going to correct me, so I didn't say anything. But I fully agree, because I found it to me, it served me that way. For me, what works for me personally is that I wake up and okay, now it's different because I have children. I have 4 to 5 hours of sleep every day, and that's it's a very different story. But back when I didn't have children, I would wake up, I'll feel very, right in the mood to meditate. So I'll sit up straight to meditate. And then I like to do energization to start my, the active part of my day. I found that was a very smooth transition. And then in the evening, I will do opposite. I'll finish the active part of my day with energization, and from there I would go into meditation. But again, that's what worked for me. I think everybody has a rhythm that works for them. What he said is the right thing. As long as you're doing it every day, just found what works for you.
Wow, time just flew by, huh? It's 30 minutes already. Okay, so thank you. So thank you, Keshava. Thank you, Vayu. I think people all acknowledge how this session will really has been inspiring.